Welcome to Changing the Sales Game podcast on webtalkradio.net. I'm your host, Connie Whitman. And as always, thanks so much for joining us. So, I know when we talk about sales, everybody gets that pit in their stomach and they think, ick, I don't want to do it. I don't want to have the sales conversation. Can I hire someone to do it for me? All of the above. And I really want you to change that frame of reference. And I'm truly on a mission to change that word sales from that icky, sleazy manipulation to coming from a place of love, care, and respect. And to help you on your journey, again, on that little mindset shift, I have a free communication style assessment, my gift to you. Go to my website, whitmanassociates.com/CSA, and you will get two reports. One, it will spotlight your natural communication superpowers, and you'll get the flip side, your lowest score, which is usually our blind spots. You'll get a report to spotlight that. So again, go to whitmanassociates.com, my free gift to you. Now, my motivational quote to set the mood for today is by Mathew Caldwell. And Mathew says, recruiting should be viewed as a business partner, someone who is critical to the success of business. As I look back over my corporate career, which is eons ago, hiring the right people was a necessity to the success of the sales division I managed. Even though I have my own business now, partnering with other business owners where we can partner and help each other grow our business, share our lists, all those kinds of things. All of the principles I used creating a thriving working partnership while in corporate, I'm using those same skills today. So think about the importance of finding, hiring, and partnering with the right people for your business. Now, today, my guest is Yvan Demosthenes, and Yvan is a sales professional with more than 20 years of experience, 16 years within talent acquisition and recruiting, which I'm so excited about. And during his career, he has attained several awards from GE, CareerBuilders, Monster.com, and others. Now, Yvan has helped companies of all sizes with their online advertising, technology integration, diversity recruiting efforts, and overall recruiting strategies. He received his MBA from Thomas More University. He received his leadership training from Harvard Business School and has his D&I certification from Cornell. Now, Yvan lives in Cincinnati with his wife and 3 kids and is a parishioner at Garden Angels Church in the community of Anderson. Yvan, thank you so much for being on and sharing your zone of genius with my listeners today.
Connie, pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. I will add that I am a proud University of Cincinnati Bearcat alum. Go Bearcats.
You're so funny. We could take the adults, right? We could never take the kid, our college alma mater out of us. Rutgers grad. Yep.
Yeah,
right, yeah. New Jersey. You're a Cincinnati dude. I'm a Jersey girl.
I'll tell you what, that's a beautiful campus as well, Rutgers.
Yeah.
I had the good fortune to spend some time at Johnson & Johnson headquarters.
Oh, nice.
And that was amazing. I almost moved my family there after spending so much time there. But my alma mater, University of Cincinnati, it's in my heart. We've had a pretty good run with football, and we're getting ready to go to the basketball tournament. We tip off at 1:00 for the conference basketball championship. So again, go University of Cincinnati Bearcats.
You're so cute. I love it. Shout out, right? Shout out to the alma mater. I love it. All right. So first question, can you tell me a little bit more about how you got first into really the sales world?
Yeah. So, Connie, if you don't mind, let me start from the beginning. I love to start there so people understand who I am and who's communicating the message. I think it resonates a little bit more.
Love it.
Born in Haiti, and at 6 months old, my parents came to America via New York. So lived out in Long Island until I was 10 years old. And one day my father, who's a physician, came home and said that he no longer wanted to live in New York. And 2-3 months later, we were living in all places Lima, Ohio. And so for those of you that don't know or have never heard of Lima, Ohio, the world revolves around Lima, Ohio. It is truly the center of the universe. More to talk about on a different day.
Very
wonderful
cool
community, but diversity really stuck out to me moving to Lima, because in my neighborhood and the schools that I went to were literally like a United Nations of people. My
Love it.
neighborhood, so my next door neighbor was from Japan. The person who lived across the street was from somewhere else. The other next door neighbor was from Jamaica. One of my friends was from Greece, and every other house had a story.
Love it.
And come to Lima, Ohio, and then I stick out like a sore thumb, right? There weren't a lot of people that looked like me. As a matter of fact, I think the next closest Haitian was like 100 miles away.
Wow.
So yeah, with that, I started school at the University of Cincinnati, and there was some thought of maybe going into the family business after, like my father to be a physician. And I had the good fortune of helping my friend with one of his businesses. He was a couple years older than me, and his both of his grandparents on both sides were furniture retailers. They both had businesses around furniture and their own stories about that. So his father had a furniture store in Dayton, Ohio, where people from all over, as far as Pittsburgh and Chicago, they would all come because he had exclusivity to a lot of these different types of furniture that only this select or privileged few could get. And he wanted to start his own empire, so to speak. And he asked me to come on board and help. And didn't take me long to realize what an amazing thing sales was. So I should share with you that my father is a psychiatrist. So I just became fascinated with the human behavior. People coming in, saying that they're just looking, and how they would just come in off the street to just looking, ended up spending thousands of dollars on furniture. And you could tell by their body language too. Sometimes if they said they weren't looking, they were doing more than just looking. Or if they were just looking and they didn't want you coming around, how they would literally, based on the way that you approach them, they would literally chase you around asking for questions and end up signing big tickets. So that was really my entree into sales. It was on the retail end, and being fascinated with the human behavior and the sales process.
It's fascinating. You're making me laugh, because when my kids started school, I got my undergraduate at Rutgers, and then I went for my MBA a few years later at night, working full time, and I got my MBA. And I always said to my husband, and we had kids, right? And then, life takes on its own, dynamic. And I always said, I want to go back for my PhD. And my husband would say, well, what do you want to do? Because I had a thriving career and everything. I said, I really want to do psychology, because, sales is really just human behavior and understanding how to connect human to human, really nothing more and nothing less. So I feel like, am I missing anything? Because it's natural, right? You're natural too. We connect, we feel each other, right? Immediately we got on, we were giggling within 3 seconds. It's that human connection, and I think it's a natural gift. And I think you have that same natural gift, but really at the and I mean that sincerely, but at the core, I think it's about human behavior. Sales is about human behavior. So said.
Yeah. Connie, I didn't ask you this. Is our conversation on video? Will our audience get to see the video?
Yes, they're going to see us, baby. Oh, baby, I do it live. I want every. Yeah. So, okay. For those of you that are on Apple Podcasts, you're losing that you don't get to see my beautiful face or Ivan's
true
handsome
story,
face.
by the way. True story.
I love it. Yeah. So I do have a YouTube. So some are watching YouTube. Some just like to listen. So, whatever your jam is, I have listeners from different venues, but yes.
Yeah. Cause I'll share with you when I learned so many things that I use today. So being in retail and seeing these things, I use in my interpersonal relationships as well as professional. As you can see here, I try to be authentic and try to give a little bit of myself, hence being in the middle of my home with my daughter's picture here. So people are actually seeing what they get, right? And I
Absolutely.
learned that when they walked into the store, and I watched, and a lot of what I did, I'd watch and ask questions. Like I would see what was going on, but couldn't articulate.
Absolutely.
And so you could be authentic and professional at the same time. You
Absolutely.
can learn to connect with strangers. You may only have 30 seconds or a minute to connect with someone, but simple things such as mirroring, which sounds, some people may not understand or really buy into it, but if someone's shy and quiet spoken, you don't want to run up to them and start being gregarious, right? And being loud and screaming at them. You want to respect that. You see an identity, and so you learn how to approach them. But on the other side, if these guys are coming out of walking into the showroom after being at a tailgate, you don't want to approach them being meek either, right? You need to learn how
Find
to
the balance.
find the balance, assess the situation. And I recall one instance in particular. For whatever reason, we were shorthanded in the store, and we had families looking for this for their home, and we had another family had their parents there who wanted to buy stuff for their new, and all these. And I got enough courage to ask them to all follow me, and I did a brief presentation on what was available, because that showroom had a lot of customization that was possible.
Cool.
And I realized if I were to go to each one, there might be an opportunity to miss out on all this enthusiasm.
That's right.
Or maybe, how sometimes customers feel cheated or slighted if they were there first and you approach somebody else after they've been waiting for. So I asked them all to come by and I gave them a brief presentation. And to my amazement, they each came up to me and commended me. And they all, I think it was like 4 or 5 groups of customers, and they all ended up buying from me that afternoon. So that taught me something as well. If you respect people and
Absolutely.
you're honest, and they all knew we were short. I was the only one in the store. So they got it and they all listened, and I shared my knowledge, and I was able to answer their questions. Not quite the approach that they had expected when they walked in, but it really, my sense of respect and making sure that they were able to attain the information that they needed to make a knowledgeable decision really helped them all. And I learned a great lesson that day.
That word respect, so important, Ivan.
Always.
My intro, right? Sales has that ick factor, and I get it. And the shows on TV and the history of sales is, the win-lose, I've gotcha, right? Cha-ching, I beat you. That's where that all comes from. And here you were short-staffed. It is what it is. You had all these people walking in, and that level of respect, that's why people pause and think, oh, this guy's a little different. He's trying to be mindful because he's got all these people and they're short-staffed, right? So what was the solution? You came up with a solution for that specific situation to help them, but it was always about helping them. That's respect.
Yes.
Love
Yes,
that story.
always. Yeah. And Connie, I'll even add, so I'm fortunate enough at Thomas More University, where I received my MBA. They invited me to be adjunct for professional selling, an accelerated course in their class. So there's a lot of marketing students in there, and some of them are taking it because, or I should say most are taking it because they need the credits, right?
Sure.
They're not super enthusiastic about being salespeople necessarily.
Absolutely.
One or two, but that's one of the things I make sure to tell them and make sure they realize, really, salespeople, for whatever people think that ick factor, which I think is more in a consumer or client's mind than reality, the world revolves because of salespeople like you and I.
Absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
without salespeople, who is going to bring new products and services to the marketplace? Who's going to go and share the latest and greatest and best practices to individuals and companies they'll be left behind. Only those that have the resources to go out and explore and discover new ways are going to be able to thrive in the marketplace. Without us,
Yeah.
and I'll even say even the big companies like your GEs and Honeywells, Amazon, they rely and they need salespeople to come and share with them what's available and how they can do things better. So
Absolutely.
so I really love what I do, and I try to share with people, hey, you can't control everybody. All you can do is control yourself.
Agree.
But there's all these sayings. No doesn't mean no. It means just right, not right now. And
That's
hey,
right.
never take no for an answer. All these things. But gosh, if I had a nickel for every time a client blew me off or told me they didn't need me, or they were just looking and then they ended up buying for me, that would be a great commission stream as well, right? How
You
many of
said it.
them come around and say, oh, I remember, hey, some guy came to me months ago talking about the same thing. I need to find who he is, right? So I'm happy to provide that service to my clients.
What would you say is the biggest challenge you faced during your career?
Biggest challenge. I mean, I don't think my challenges are any different than anyone else's, right? You try to perfect your craft, and you try to overcome barriers, whether they're gatekeepers, distance, or any lack of resources that you may have. Things arise. I will say that I came from a place where all this was new to me, and I remember being in my MBA class. My undergrad was in natural science, concentration in biology, and I had really no grasp of the business world, and my mind just kind of exploded. Like, oh, like things. I'm like reflecting back in my past, and because I got my MBA when I was in my early 30s, so all these things started making sense and clicking. So I'd say on one says, I wish I would have known what I didn't know, or been able to seek out mentorship.
Yeah.
And I tell people, you saw me on the phone with one of my candidates. Coaching is unbelievable. The concept of coaching wasn't even in my mind. I couldn't even have asked for it because I didn't understand. So
Yeah.
a lot of the things that have made me successful, I had to figure out on my own, and luckily I was able to. But I will say, had some good managers, had some bad ones. The good ones that were able to assist and guide me really helped. But the bad managers I'd have to discover, and not that they were bad people, right? They were
100%. They're just bad managers.
They're
Yeah.
maybe they got a role because they knew the boss, or
That's right.
they had a
They
role
were there the
because
longest, right?
they were there the longest,
Yeah.
or they were good at selling, but that didn't make them a good manager.
That's right.
All these different things. And I will say that one of the realizations in my career was realizing the impact of relationship selling.
Absolutely.
Was a huge turning point for me.
Yeah. It's all about the relationship, Ivan. And I'm laughing because life is a great teacher, right? We don't,
Yes.
and that's on the intro, right? This, my communication style assessment. We all have blind spots, but if no one shines a light on our blind spots, we don't even know they're there. That's why they're called blind spots, right? Well, it's the same thing in life, and life is a great teacher, sometimes a harsh teacher, but a great teacher. And I just want to comment, all managers should not be managers. I kind of paraphrase, but I agree with that they're great at whatever that skill is. That doesn't translate them to being great mentors, coaches, or bosses, right? I have found that I had probably in my 20 years in corporate, before I opened my business 20 years ago, I probably had 2 good managers. The rest are horrifying. Here's the thing though, as a business owner now, as a coach now, right? As a sales leader and teaching people sales, what I learned from the bad managers, I think really has served me well as well, because you know
Yeah.
what doesn't work and is horrifying that you could never do or was wrong to treat another human that way. So it's just, I think, again, life is life. It teaches you, but also even those bad experiences, you walked away with some nugget or some learning piece or a change within self that now makes us better at coaching or whatever it is. And I want to shift for a minute. Now you help people, like you had just before we started recording, one of your clients, you were coaching her on her interviewing and all of those things. When looking at the overall recruitment strategies, what are some things that you see a lot of companies are just lacking? That, because I have a lot of executives and people who work in corporate that I think, as well as business owner like ourselves, right? What should we be looking for so that we don't make those mistakes?
Yeah. So great question. I don't know if I can necessarily speak to that, because I think from where I sit, although there are some commonalities, things are unique to every organization
Yeah,
as well,
agree with
right?
that. Mhm.
But I will say that overall, the attraction of talent is changing so much that I think our our companies are, the corporate America is kind of missing the mark. And unfortunately, those that are doing a good job
Mhm.
are the ones that we all hear about, and they're the ones that are really like spreading distance, making distance from the others, right? So
Yeah.
they're getting the best talent. They're being able to choose who they want, and then everybody else is left to fight and try to uh, get on board somewhere else where they're not as well equipped to even bring you in, right? We could talk about so many things. Automation for one, um, diversity recruiting. I've been sharing with people, hey, if you don't have a diversity strategy, you're starting off on the shorthanded, because what you're telling yourself and your company is that you don't need to attract from a portion of the population. You're right off the bat working from a short end of the stick, right? So it's
Blind
essential.
spots. Blind
Yeah,
spots.
yeah, because people have different experiences. So, for instance, if you are a national or global company, and you focus your efforts where, whether it's on purpose or not, but you focus your efforts one way and you're getting 98% men, you're missing out on half the population. If you
Right.
have if you have a strategy that does not attract military veterans or their family members, you're leaving out a huge part of the demographic that brings some phenomenal skill sets to
Absolutely.
to your
And
organization
disciplines. Yeah.
and disciplines, right? And let me also say that we're in an age where our population is growing 55 and older at a phenomenal rate. So there's potential there to really have someone who can be a game changer in your organization based on their knowledge and experience,
Absolutely.
and have some truly huge impact on your organization. So if you're not paying attention to that, you're going to miss out on that workforce, and that's a growing workforce. So with every passing day, week, month, year, you're shrinking the pool of candidates that you can have. Truly, if you're a smaller company, maybe it's not as painful, but I tell people this too: just because you're looking for an accountant, you're not just competing with the banks and the IRS or any firms. You're competing with everybody, because everybody needs accountants,
Okay.
right? So you can use that thought process with just about any role, any position. You really have to have a good approach in expanding and widening that pool for yourself.
Yeah. And it's blind spots when you don't have the different perspectives. So 2 comments on that. Gary V, Gary V, he's from Jersey. He's a Jersey guy. He's all over the internet. He's a philanthropist, but he's also an angel investor. And so my kids follow him too. So he's very diverse, which I like, he curses and stuff. So that resonates with the kids. But a lot of his stuff, maybe it doesn't resonate with me, but one day I remember I was listening to his podcast or whatever, an interview that he did. And he said that kids are not afraid to come to him and say, hey, I have this great idea, Gary, can you give me some money for? And they have it all planned out what their idea is. And he says, and there's so many missing pieces because they're young, right? Life, they don't have a lot of life and a lot of experience. He says, you 55, 60, 65, 70-year-olds, why aren't you calling me? He says, because you have all of this life experience, but the chances of you being able to translate that into real money, right? Successful money. Again, not necessarily that money measures success, but that you could create a thriving, successful business just because of exactly what you just said. You have so much experience and you've seen so much that you're not going to make mistakes that the kids are making. He said, I'm waiting to give you old people money. Like, where are you? Right. So I giggled because when I saw this, probably I'm 60 now, it was maybe 56 when I saw that interview. And I remember I was starting another podcast, right? I was changing my business. I created another division. And as I was talking to colleagues and friends, who did not have their own business, they were like, why are you doing that? Like, aren't you looking to retire? And it was funny. The first time I was asked, Ivan, I paused and I said, huh? Retire? I'm too young. Like, what are you talking about? So to me, it was, no, I have more to do. What do you mean slow down? Like, I feel like I'm amping up because I have all of this knowledge now that I know what to do with. You know what I mean?
Oh, of course. And hey, doesn't that mean that you get to do what you want?
Well, I get to do what I want now.
Yeah, exactly. So if you wanted to climb Mount Everest, or if you wanted to hang out at Starbucks or Burger King, or start your own business. I mean, we talked about my daughter. I can't wait for the day where I buy her an animal hospital and I sit and greet everybody that comes in the front door
I
to
love
this
it.
animal, right? So yeah, I'm looking forward to retirement. I'm going to be a phenomenal animal breeder.
Yes, I love it. But see, that's what I'm saying. So like slowing down, yes, look, there's nothing wrong with retiring or looking forward to that. But I would giggle when people would ask me that. It's like, have you met me? Do you see my energy level? Could you imagine me not having something to do or a purpose every day? I'd shrivel up and die. like it's so polar opposite of how my brain thinks. The other thing I wanted to comment on the diversity, and this will be my last comment. We're almost out of time, but it's important.
I'm here all day, Connie.
I know you're so cute. The attention span of listeners, including myself, right? We have a low attention span. But here's the other important thing that you said about diversity that I think we forget about that's important. Every one of us, every human that walks this earth, we all have a different life experience. They're finding are transmitting biases and perspectives and beliefs from 14 generations, that it's actually traveling and handed down through our DNA, not even just the experiential piece, right? That you learn between that age of 1 and 5. So you have men and women. I love how you said that, right? We do think differently. I'm Italian. I grew up with a very big Italian family, and I always use the story Christmas Eve. I remember the first time I took it over, my aunts and my mom and everybody was getting older, and my generation took over the holidays. And I remember the first one, I was having 40 people. And I remember talking to a friend, and she's like, oh, you're doing Christmas Eve? I'm like, yeah, my first one. And how many people? I go, 40. I go, it's going to be so much fun. And the reaction, Ivan, was hilarious. She goes, wait, what? And I said, well, how many people are you having? She goes, 6. I go, 6, 40. Like, what's the difference?
What's the difference?
But here's the thing. I grew up with 70 people around the table, and that was normal for me, where her perspective was like 40 people. You're not going to be able to sleep for a week planning that, right? So it's perspective. And we have these biases through generations, through how we were raised, male, female, right?
Yeah.
Where you grew up, like you were saying, Long Island, I'm a Jersey girl, right? It impacts how we see the world. And here's the most important thing, right? And I know you believe this too, Ivan. It's not good or bad, right or wrong. It is. So why aren't we tapping into that diversity of our human individualness, right?
Yes.
To create even a better experience for anybody who enters our orbit, right? And for sales, I think that's real important.
Yeah, Connie, I couldn't agree with you more. Very well said. I love to experience people's homes and families, right? And
Yes,
I think that's, yeah. And then, when I can go in there and smell the food and hear the stories, where although all those things, there are differences, we're much more alike than we are different. And I can't tell you how many times I've come home with a recipe or come home and shared a story that resonates with the family or others. And more importantly, how many times have we gone into businesses and we're like, oh, we should take that back and talk about it, bring best practices and what we see too, right?
yes, absolutely.
Same thing. And yeah, I can't tell you how many times I have a client recently who we placed, of all things. HVAC is huge in this region. I don't know if it is where you are, but they're really, really good HVAC people are hard to find.
Yeah.
And I was able to find somebody, bring him over to this company that's provides. They're a construction company, but they provide HVAC service to their clients because they do clean rooms. And the president told me last week that his mind was blown from the candidate, because he's just bringing all these different things that they never had. And man, he couldn't stop talking about it. So I'm like, you know what, that my job is done.
Yeah.
And that individual doesn't even realize what he's doing for me, because every time that they need somebody now, they're going to think of him.
Absolutely.
And how impactful he is to their organization. And more importantly, it's not going to hurt when they write the check to me, right? They'll smile when they sign the check. So,
absolutely. Absolutely. It's a gift to be able to coordinate and put the right candidate with the right organization, right? It's a gift. The other thing I'll say about the president that you just mentioned, that he was so grateful in all the new ideas that the new person brought to the table. I give him credit, because sometimes what happens is the president or the lead person, right, whether it's the boss or not, they say, oh, we don't do it that way. Where he was saying, I love that idea. Tell me more.
You're right.
I give him a lot of credit for being open-minded. And I think that's another takeaway for anybody that business or works in corporate, doesn't matter, that you're a leader. You want to hear people's ideas, because inevitably they can make you better. So we have to be open-minded. And I don't know, as a society, we always are. We think our way is the right way. And I'll just, on this last note, Ivan, I'll share with you, as I age, and with COVID, I pivoted, because who knew small business owners could use my service? I had always had corporate clients where I helped them build corporate cultures, right? Sales, service, the client journey kind of perspective. Now these small business owners are like, I'd be in networking, or they hear me speak and say, can you help me? And sure, right? And I remember learning, because I didn't know a lot about the technology and the platforms and how to offer things, right, through this digital framework. And I remember learning during COVID, taking all these classes and learning and meeting and networking and asking a million questions. And every night my husband would go, how was it? And they'd go, oh my God, I don't know anything. I felt I had so many darn blind spots. And for the first time, I had the opportunity, because of COVID, to ask and explore in a venue that I had never, ever been on before, because everything was live for me. I met live, I spoke live, I trained live. So it's for people listening and hearing Ivan's story and his background and just our conversation today, you have to be open-minded. And that's not always an easy thing, but you learn so much when you open your mind to what is possible, right?
Yeah, 100%. And thank you for for acknowledging that, because it is when you can do it right and you can make that perfect match. I think my skill set, being a salesperson at heart,
Yes.
I've been able to kind of identify within the organizations like
Yeah.
what makes them great and
Yeah.
find people that are good matches for them, whether they're old, young, whatever. I think it's essential as often as possible to sell the company in an exciting way. I think that's one thing that's missing from a lot of corporate America, is starting to go down the list and just check the boxes.
Yes.
Insurance, check. PTO, check. Yeah, 9 to 5 Monday, and they forget to tell about all the great things or what makes them a wonderful place to work.
Yeah.
And truly, sometimes the candidates forget that too. They're looking for those things. So they forget to circle back and say, hey, now we've got all those things. Now let me tell you why you need to come work here, why we
Yeah.
want you, why you're going to be a great fit. And yeah, happy to chat with you about that more often. I've learned so much from you today, Connie.
Oh, thank you so much. Back at you. And it's funny because what you just described to me is sales. You are a solution provider. Your solution is to pull the corporation and the candidate and do that perfect marriage that just makes the win-win, like your president reaching out and saying, the president of that company, I'm learning so much from him. I can't thank you enough that you brought him to me, right? So it's knowing who the president and the organization is and finding the right person. That relationship, that's sales, relationships, and providing solutions. That's at the core. I really believe that's the job of a salesperson. Everyone, I think you need more Yvan in your life. So here's the deal. Go to his website, which is hamiltondemo.com. If you'd like to reach out to Yvan directly, it's Yvan, YVAN, at hamiltondemo.com. Don't worry, I will put it in the show notes for you so that you can find him easy peasy. Yvan, thank you again for being on. Just such a great conversation. And here's the deal. I love the show because I hope people listen and hear our conversation, right? It's nothing more than a conversation, but I hope they go, oh, I never thought of that, right? It's that expansion of perspective that just makes us better. So thank you so much for sharing your zone of genius today. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, Connie. I had a great time. Thank you.
Back at you, my friend. And I hope you will join me weekly as we question, build, and discover together that sales, building relationships, career, wherever you are in your career or business. I hope my guests and I provide some tips, strategies, and ideas for you. Here's the deal. Information is a wonderful thing. Applying that information is where we create the change and the magic on the back end. So create magic, apply some of the ideas that Yvan and I talked about today, and just see what crazy, amazing things happen. Thank you again, Yvan. Thank you all for joining me. You've been listening to Changing the Sales Game on webtalkradio.net with me, your host, Connie Whitman. I truly wish you a wonderful week full of inspiration, full of change, and full of new relationships and building those relationships so that you could create even more in the world. We need to be generous. We need to love each other. And I hope you bring that to the world too. So thanks and have a great week, everybody. See you next week.